Hello, I'm Aurelia. I'm your teacher of this course on creating insight to customers and end users. This is lesson number 10. It's about consumer motivation. Here are the learning objectives for this session: to understand the types of human needs and motives, and the meaning of goal. And the dynamics of motivation, arousal of needs, setting of goals, the interrelation between needs and goals. Motivation is produced by a state of tension, by having a need which is unfulfilled. Consumers want to fulfill their needs and reduce the state of tension. For example, when you're very hungry, you're extremely motivated to find food. Perhaps when you need a new pair of pants, you're a bit less motivated to fulfill this need as compared to your need for food. In the case of needing pants, it's important for marketers to help increase your motivation or specify your need for their products. Perhaps diesel jeans. So, to resume, motivation is the driving force within individuals that impels them to action, and needs are the essence of the marketing concept. Marketers do not create needs, but can make consumers aware of needs. This model highlights the motivation process. We can see that the drive towards behavior will often end in the fulfillment of the need. The processes and effects of previous learning tie strongly into choices made when the behavior is defined. So in the beginning there are these unfulfilled needs, wants, and desires. When they're unfulfilled, they lead to tension and the drive or urge to fulfill this need. There in between comes into question your personality, your perception, learning, and attitudes, which then determine to which kind of behavior this needs leads you to. What is your goal or need fulfillment? And when the goal or need is fulfilled, there is a clear reduction of tension. The example of the need for food compared to a new pair of jeans can be further described by understanding types of needs. The need for food is more of an innate need and is considered a primary need. The need for a pair of jeans would be considered acquired. The need for clothing could be considered primary, but the need specifically for a pair of jeans is acquired, especially when they are a certain brand or designer jeans. To resume, we have two types of needs: the innate needs, these physiological needs, and the acquired needs, which are learned and are rather psychological or secondary needs. Needs may have a positive or negative direction. There are in fact some products we are not drawn to. For example, when people shop for funeral services, this is not something they are usually drawn to, but rather must pursue and purchase. Continuing with our example of jeans, we can understand the types of goals that exist. When a consumer states they want a pair of jeans, they have stated a generic goal. When they announce they really want a pair of Calvin Klein jeans, then they have stated a product-specific goal. The sought-after results of motivated behavior are called goals. There are two types of goals: generic goals, that are general categories of goals that consumers see as a way to fulfill their needs, and product-specific goals that are specifically branded products towards branded products or services that the consumers select as their goals. So, how does this ad appeal to one's goals? Well, this image appeals to several physical appearance related goals. The goals selected by an individual depend on their personal experience, physical capacity, prevailing cultural norms and values, goals accessibility in the social and physical environment. Consumers have many possible goals when making decisions. They are strongly influenced by their experiences, personality, and other opinions and input. When choosing goals, they have to keep in mind what is socially acceptable and what they can physically attain. Think of a recent decision you might have made to go on vacation. How was it influenced by personal experience, the accessibility of the goal, and the social environment? Well, here are some questions to discuss on the course blog. What are the 3 generic goals you have set for yourself in the past year? What are 3 product-specific goals you have set in the past year? In what situations are these 2 related? How were these goals selected? Was it personal experiences, physical capacity, or prevailing cultural norms and values? There are many responses to this question based on your personality, family, experiences, friends, and teacher influences. Maybe your goals are educational, financial, or fitness related. Perhaps you have decided to learn specific skills, attend a certain course, join a gym, and open accounts at stock brokerage firms. In general, the product goals should fit into the general goals. It is interesting to reflect on how each of the influences and experience in your life have led you to both your generic and your product-specific goals. Remember to discuss this on the course blog. Here is a table or a slide with 2 tables, the positive and negative motivations and goals. We learned in an earlier slide that needs can be either positive or negative. The same is true for goals, which can also be positive or negative. A positive goal could include joining a gym to get strong and train for an upcoming race. Another person with a negative goal might join the gym to avoid health problems that will certainly exist if they do not exercise regularly. Which are you? Is going to gym to you a positive goal or a negative goal? It would be a positive goal to get in better health, to get more fit, to run the half marathon, or a negative goal to going to gym would be like losing some extra kilos and trying to then hence prevent some health problems. Likewise, a positive goal is something that is directed to a positive behavior, and a negative goal would be something that would be away from driving you away from some negative element or phenomenon. The value of bloggers to marketers is undeniable. They post their experiences and exposures to brands online, where many others users or potential users can hear more about the brands. Marketers must understand the motivations, needs, and goals of bloggers to effectively target them. This table is based on a study where the respondents answered according to a 7-point Likert scale, ranging from strongly agree to so strongly disagree. This describes the blogger's motivation. The motivation can be blogging for self-expression, blogging for life documenting, for commenting, for participating on a forum, or for looking for information. Blogging for self-expression, such as I use my blog to free my mind when I'm moody, or I express myself by writing in my blog. My blog is this place where I express what I feel. Life documenting, I use my blog as a diary to document my life. My writing text and posting video or audio files, I keep a record of my life. Commenting, I'm willing to comment on what other bloggers say. I'd like to respond to other blogs that I read. I'd like to receive people's comments on what I post on my blog. Participating in forums, blogging helps me to make more like-minded friends. In my blog role, I have friends with whom I can share things. My blogging, I interact with a set of blogs that I have contents similar to what I put in my blog. And blogging for information seeking. Blogging helps me extract information behind events that interest me. Blogging helps me explore more information about products and or services. To me, it's convenient to search for information by blogging. There has been extensive research regarding rational versus emotional motives during purchase. Their existence has been tied to how consumers view marketing variables, including advertisements and pricing adjustments. Furthermore, it must be realized that the definition of emotional versus rational motivation differs significantly from one consumer to another and in different situations. Rational motives imply that consumers select goals based on totally objective criteria such as size, weight, price, or miles per gallon. Emotional motives imply the selection of goals according to personal or subjective criteria. Here again some issues to discuss on the course blog. Remember, Now it is the course blog for weeks 3 to 4. So, what products might be purchased using rational and which ones using emotional motives? And on the other hand, what marketing strategies are effective when there are combined motives? You should consider that rational motives are often tied to products that are higher involvement, and emotional motives are often used on low involvement items. The marketing strategies will also differ in the amount of information and the advertising appeals. Motivation is highly dynamic and constantly changes in response to life experiences. Motivations change as we age, interact with others, change careers, acquire wealth, become ill, marry or divorce, or pursue education. Needs are never fully satisfied. New needs emerge as old needs are satisfied, and people who achieve their goals set new and higher goals for themselves. So there's always dynamism in the motivation. Humans constantly have needs. This is due in part to the fact that our needs are never fully satisfied, or once satisfied, reappear. Hunger is a good example of a need that is often not satisfied and reappears. As humans, we also develop new needs as we satisfy existing needs. The hierarchy of effects models shows how we meet our lower level needs first and then move up the hierarchy. Finally, our needs are based on the goals that we set for ourselves. If one sets a goal to enter politics, they may feel they need a law degree. However, if they're unsuccessful in getting accepted at law school, their needs may change and they may want to pursue a few years of work experience first and need to find a job. Then about substitute goals. They are used when a consumer cannot attain a specific goal he or she anticipates, and the substitute goals would satisfy the need. The substitute goal will then dispel tension and actually replace the primary goal over time. It's very common that a consumer cannot attain a goal. This may be due to lack of money, ability, desire, or accessibility. In this instance, the consumer often substitutes a different goal to reduce the tension created from the existence of this need. In time, this substitute goal might replace the initial goal. For instance, if a consumer wanted a certain cable television service, but it was not available in their area, they might choose a satellite television provider. Over time, they may be satisfied with this choice and feel that they actually prefer the satellite services over the cable television service. Frustration results when there's a failure to achieve a goal. Some others adapt defense mechanisms to protect their ego. Failure to achieve goal and the frustration that follows has been experienced by everyone at some time or another. Marketers must realize that consumers' responses might be and how they can address these responses. Online education exists for those who are too far or do not have the structured time to attend college. The table on the next slide represents several defense mechanisms that consumers might exhibit when they're frustrated about not meeting a goal. The understanding of these defense mechanisms will help provide many opportunities to craft advertising messages to reach the emotional side of the consumers. Aggression can be a response to frustration. Individuals may resort to aggressive behavior in attempting to protect their self-esteem. The tennis pro who slams his tennis racket to the ground when disappointed with his game, or the baseball player who physically intimidates an umpire for his calls, are examples of such conduct. So are consumer boycotts of companies or stores. Rationalization appears when people invent plausible reasons to resolve frustration when they cannot attain their goals. For example, not having enough time to practice, or deciding that the goal is really not worth pursuing, or so on. Another defense mechanism is regression. An individual may react to the frustrating situation with childish or immature behavior. A shopper attending a bargain sale, for example, might fight over merchandise and even rip a garment that another shopper will not relinquish, rather than allow the other person to have it. Withdrawal. Frustration may be resolved by simply withdrawing from the situation. For instance, a person who has difficulty achieving officer status in an organization may decide he can use his time more constructively in other activities and simply quit that organization. Defense mechanisms are used when people cannot cope with the frustration. They are often developed to protect one's ego from feelings of failure when goals are not achieved. Perhaps you can identify a time when you use a defense mechanism when reacting to a difficult situation. A consumer has a variety of needs, but only some of them are aroused at any given time and given top of mind priority. Motives become aroused by the consumer's psychological condition. They get hungry, their emotional state, they get frustrated by cognitive processes. They read and add that make them think about their needs, or by events occurring in their general surroundings, such as the weather becomes cold. How does this ad arouse one's needs? This ad is designed to arouse one's yearning for an adventurous vacation by appealing to the sense of touch. Well, this was the end of this session. We will continue on this subject in the next lesson, number 11. Thank you for your interest.